Jacob Zuma protected the Guptas while Cyril Ramaphosa looked the other way. The state capture report has criticised Zuma's complicity in the state capture network and recommends his actions be investigated for criminal conduct. At the same time, Chief Justice Raymond Zondo says Ramaphosa claimed to be resisting state capture but can't produce the evidence. These were just some of the findings in the final part of the report, which was handed over last night. Well, for more on this, let's bring in eNCA's Govan Whittles. Good evening, Govan. Thank you very much for joining us. Won't you take us through the findings on the state capture report around President Cyril Ramaphosa and former President Jacob Zuma?
Thank you, Sally. Well, what's interesting here is the manner in which the report describes how the current president conducted himself while head of the ANC's deployment committee, as well as being deputy president of the country. And it's interesting because President Cyril Ramaphosa's testimony to the commission focused on how he said he shouldn't have, or he chose not to resign because he felt it would be more effective for him to fight state capture from within the cabinet. And of course, at the time, while he was head of the deployment committee, the minutes for that committee were not available to the commission. The Chief Justice reflected on this in the report and tried to find instances where the president resisted. And of course, in the testimony, he did point to a number of incidences, especially the sacking of Nhlanhla Nene as finance minister, and how that was dealt with within the cabinet, with colleagues rallying themselves against the decision. But ultimately, the Chief Justice found that the president wasn't able to resist state capture from within. Interestingly, when it comes to former President Jacob Zuma and how he conducted his cabinet, the Chief Justice finding that former President Jacob Zuma's alleged interference in an investigation by the State Security Agency into the Guptas, when there appeared to be enough evidence to warrant such an investigation, he encouraged the SSA not to proceed with it, and thus the Chief Justice concluding that the former president used his powers to protect the Guptas from investigation. Let's listen now to Prince Mashele and his analysis of the findings in the state capture report.
The whole governing party of South Africa, that is the African National Congress, is guilty of state capture. And this comes out very clearly. The Chief Justice makes such a finding in terms of the culpability of the governing party. Under normal circumstances in a democracy and a country governed by a rule of law, the whole party was supposed to be dissolved because it is all guilty. Number two, the other thing that stands out for me is that the president, the current president, Cyril Ramaphosa of the state, he is equally guilty in the sense that he actually knew what was going on and he decided to look the other way. And if you do that, it means that you are culpable. So this whole thing now is in the hands of, it's in two hands. The first hand is voters. What do you do with a political party that has literally collapsed your state? That's number one. The other hand is law enforcement agencies. Will they have the courage to prosecute high-ranking personalities linked to the guilty party that is the ANC?
We also know, Govan, that the president, and he said this last night, he's got 4 months to announce exactly how he's going to implement the report. And I would imagine that means political repercussions as well. But what could we expect in the next 4 months, do you think?
Well, within the next 4 months, there will certainly be developments within the ANC, but more closely, people are watching developments within the cabinet of the president with much anticipation of a reshuffle, depending on which cabinet members actually take the report on review and how they react to the findings of the state capture report. The ANC, of course, has appointed a task team to look at how to implement the state capture report, but as it goes to a conference to elect new leaders, and with the president vying for re-election, he'll certainly try to use this to his advantage and try to put together a team that, based on this report, would be considered to be legitimate enough to contest the elections with a probable chance of winning, while those that oppose the president will try to use this report and its consequences to rally more support or coalesce a bigger force to try and contest the president or his allies in the December conference. But that's just the political implications. The main question that groups such as the Organization Undoing Tax Abuse is asking is how fast the NPA will act following the recommendations of the state capture report. Let's listen now to Wayne Duvenage and what he had to say about what should happen in the next 4 months.
Years of evidence gathering, years of interviews. This is a judicial commission. It is a formal one, so this evidence now can be used by the NPA. I think a lot of the legwork has been done, so we cannot let it gather dust. What's very important now is that the NPA is capacitated so that it can go and do this work. You must remember the NPA every day is dealing with murder, robbery, corruption, fraud, so many things, and there's 10 years of backlog to catch up, and they have been decimated. So we need to ensure that they are capacitated, give them as much support as we can, but what has to happen is this report cannot just be left to lie and gather dust. We need to see action now. We need to see accountability. There are a lot of people that have brought this country to its knees, and we cannot allow them to go unaccounted for.
A lot of people say, or critics say, that there's no political will.
Well, it would seem that way, but you know, the politicians have to stay out of it, quite frankly. This is for the criminal justice system to start doing its work. We have seen a number of people rounded up. We see that Guptas are going to be extradited, hopefully sooner rather than later, to South Africa. But there are a lot of people, a lot of, as they say in the report, Gupta ministers, Gupta kingpins that are in this country right now that have, enjoying their spoils. They need to be held accountable. So we're looking forward to seeing them in the dock and hopefully in jail.
Yeah, certainly. And just the little bits of the report that I've been able to read, Govan, are quite startling. When you look at it, you start to see the architecture and the modus operandi of how state capture worked. Thank you very much for that update. Do appreciate it. eNCA's Govan Whittles. Now,